This week on X-Trex, orbs that make you mean Russian goose schemes. In this house, we hate war and love vaccines.
It's the Enemies Working Together episode. Welcome to X-Trex, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files spooky bitch.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is Enemies Working Together.
I didn't change it there, sorry.
It's written incorrectly several different places, but the theme is Enemies Working Together.
Today we watch the Season 3 episode Day of the Dove, where the Enterprise crew and a group of Klingons are puppeteered by an alien entity that feeds off their aggression. It's actually a pretty heavy story about the violence of man, the perpetuity of war, and bigotry. It can be a little heavy-handed at times and is actually pretty disturbing, but for an episode of television that aired in 1969, it's pretty incredible to hear people on TV saying that they're disgusted by race hatred and war. Also, Spock is so truly, truly good in this episode because he's surrounded by messy Klingons and humans and is just fucking over it. A true king.
And it's time, everyone. It's finally time for the Mulder/Krychek fans to get theirs. In this episode,
Makes it seem like you're gonna kill them.
Well, they deserve it. We're covering the 2-part insanity that is Season 4's Tunguska and Termina, aka that time Mulder and Krychek go to Russia, get infected with alien goo, and Krychek has his fucking arm cut off by a group of rogue Russian youths. Are you ready?
I am ready.
I'm ready as well. All right, let's do it. Let's dig it in there, Mr. Spock.
Attack my ship. 400 of my crew dead. Kirk, my ship is disabled. I claim yours.
Are you ready for a quick-ish episode summary?
Sure.
I gotta take off my sweater for this one. It's just hot in here.
Gotta get ready for the race hatred.
The episode begins with the Enterprise crew responding to a distress call from a human colony. The crew beam down to the planet only to find that the entire colony is missing, presumed destroyed. As they are trying to solve the mystery of what could have done such a thing, a Klingon ship comes into view and then, oops, part of the ship blows up, unprovoked. A handful of Klingons, including their captain, Kang, beam down to safety of the planet. Kang pistol whips Kirk, gasp, and accuses Kirk, by name, of destroying his crew. Kirk is like, no, you destroyed this colony. And Kang is like, no, bitch, we are responding to a distress call. And Kirk is like, nah, we are responding to a distress call. And then Chekhov is like, you killed my brother! And all hell breaks loose. But there are more Klingons than Starfleets. Yeah, I'm calling them Starfleets. So Kang orders Kirk to beam everyone up. No tricks, except for, tricks. Spock and Scottie.
No tricks past the door.
It's in the note. It's in the summary. Spock and Scottie beam everybody up, but hold the Klingons in the transporter long enough for Kirk and the gang to turn the tides. Kang is like, what gives? You said no tricks, but Kirk said, I said no tricks after we got on board. Is this flirting? It feels like flirting. Anyways, Kirk puts the Klingons, including Kang's wife Mara, in a secure room with replicators calibrated to the Klingon food. So it's not all bad, but the Enterprise still blows up their ship because it's leaking radiation, so it does really suck to be a Klingon. Oh, and the glowing entity that was mysteriously on the planet also got beamed up, and nobody noticed. That probably has nothing to do with the fact that everyone is freaking out and really grumpy, and the Enterprise is headed for the edge of the galaxy at Warp 9, even though no one is driving, and most of the crew is trapped below deck, so now it's 38 Starfleets versus 40 Klingons, and boing, oops, also horde sword fight! Sucks to be the mysterious entity, though, because Spock is here and detects that there is an extra life form on board and speculates that the entity must feed on anger and violence, but he can't focus on that because everyone is fighting again, especially Chekhov, who we learn doesn't even have a brother because Sulu is the only one who bothered to learn anything about Chekhov when he joined the crew. And anyways, Chekhov sucks because he sexually assaults Mara, and even though he's being controlled by an alien entity, he still sucks and I hate him. Thankfully, Kirk bitch slaps him in the face a bunch to snap him out of it, but still, he sucks. Kirk begs Mara to take him to Kang because they know about the entity, but she's rightfully like, no, because she doesn't believe him because of, what just happened. So he takes her as a prisoner. War is bad. Kirk and Spock take Chekhov to Bones in medbay, where they discover that everyone injured is healing at an incredible rate, leading them to believe that the entity is keeping them alive so that they may fight in a never-ending Coliseum battle for its pleasure. Bones apologizes for being a racist dick earlier, and Spock apologizes too, and it's a sweet moment, and holy shit, this aired in 1969, which is wild. Star Trek really is the best. Anyways, they find the entity and show it to Mara so she knows it's real, and just to pile on, the ship is almost out of dilithium completely because it's been warping at like a crazy rate, so they are running out of time. But Mara is a real one, and she shows Kirk where Kang is with moments to spare. Kang, of course, doesn't believe Kirk, and they fight with their swords again. But Mara is like, Kahless, Christ, listen up and stop fighting, god damn it. And then Kirk is like, fine, kill me, won't matter anyways. And Kirk is like, word, that's crazy. Oh shit, there's an alien right there. And maybe this Starfleet was right. And then they kill the space entity with some real fake space laughter. Then I assume Kirk and Mara and Kang bang because make love, not war, right? Somebody please write me this fanfic. Okay, summary done.
That fanfic doesn't exist.
I haven't really looked for that one. I spent a lot of time looking for X-Files Venom fic.
Before we go any further, I just want to give reverence to the joke Kahless Christ.
Yeah, that was really good. I was like, I don't understand this, but I appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you so much. What did you think of this episode?
I really liked it.
Yeah, me too. I like this episode. I think it gets kind of unfairly shit on because it gets lopped in with season 3's whole deal.
Yeah, the whole thing with the season 3. Yes. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I thought it was generally very well written. I thought everyone in it was really good. I liked the energy between Kirk and Kang.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting to ship that, but I definitely did.
Yeah, me too.
When he like walks away from him at the end and like throws his sword down, I was like, "Ooh, okay, well, that's very hot."
Yeah. Yes? Oh, wait.
No.
Unless?
Just, bang your phalluses together tomorrow. Okay, never mind. That's done. All right, we'll move on. Anyway, I thought it was great. I thought Mara was especially good.
She was really good.
I like that there's that scene where it keeps cutting back to her. It was Kirk and I don't remember, but they kept cutting back to her face, and she didn't have any dialogue. And there was this moment where I was like, "This could ruin this episode."
Yeah,
the like constant focus back to her after she becomes a prisoner of war. If she wasn't doing such a good job sitting in that balance of helpless woman prisoner of war and like Romulan fighter. I thought she did a really good job sitting inside of that. And so I thought she helped like hold the back half of this episode in a way I really enjoyed.
Right. And it's established that she's like a science officer on the ship and she's like a part of the crew. She's not just like Kang's wife or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could have really easily, especially after the like sexual assault scene, it could have easily been her being like helpless or like a baby woman. And she is helpless. She is like a prisoner of war, but she's not like, she doesn't like,
she's not a passive prisoner.
Yeah, she's not passive. That's exactly the word that I was looking for. And she is kind of the turning tide of it, right?
Right.
She's like, okay, you were right. And there's that whole scene where, like, at the beginning, she's like, we can't be taken prisoner by Starfleet. They like torture people in their prisons and they do all this terrible stuff. And then when she realizes that they don't do that, she's like shocked by it. And Kirk's like, yeah, that's like propaganda and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
This feels like a trick. Like, well, maybe it is. All right. That's fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, I thought that
also her outfit is bitchin'. It's so good.
Yeah, I really liked her outfit. One of the things I didn't like about this episode is the face paint. Like, it's we talked a lot while we were watching it where it's not blackface.
And it's a lot more egregious in this episode. It's like a lot, like we've seen it before, obviously, because we've seen like Kor and Koloth, and like it's not like great, but it's not. I don't know. In this one, because they paint specifically Kang so dark
and wet. It's so wet. It's
I
so
think maybe
distracting.
He was just sweaty. Maybe it seemed hot because Kirk was also sweaty as hell.
Everyone with the paint was wet in the first half of the episode, which makes me think that they shot it first because the paint dries at some point. Because later in the episode, it's not quite as egregious. But when they first show up, it's like, what? It's happening.
Yeah,
it's like
and
they
Mars
hit
is
them with moistener.
not like, it's like they didn't seal any of it.
No, yeah, and like her face is wet still, like they've reapplied it, but her neck is like clay colored. It
makes sense
weird.
that they like added the ridges and they were like, let's make these people look alien and not like they're in blackface.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was weird because it really is just dark face paint, and that's why it's not like, oh, this is like egregious blackface. It just suggests blackface in a way that's fucking weird. Yeah.
You do have to get over that.
Yeah, and as the episode goes on and the paint dries a little more, it was a little easier to like look past that, but it was I was like not paying attention to the dialogue for a while because it was like, I cannot stop staring at this terrible makeup.
Yeah, it's
which is unusual too for Trek, I feel like.
Yeah, it's interesting because this episode was actually written for Core from Erin of Mercy, but they were like, but at the end of Erin of Mercy, it's like the Organian peace treaty, and like if we made them like enemies right away, it would kind of like undercut that, and like it does say like Kang does say like, we're at peace. What the fuck? Why did you blow up our ship? But so like Kang is a new character, but it's like it's guessed to be like a script thing because he's like Kirk, because it would make sense if it was Core, like you would know him right away. But I do like the reading of like either Kirk and Kang have met before and have battled before, which totally would make sense. They do have like a very interesting chemistry, or it's just like everybody knows who this bitch is.
Yes.
Like both readings of it work.
Yeah, they do both.
They work.
Yeah,
a lot.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I really liked Kang. I thought he was very good.
Yeah, Kang, Core, and Koloff, the like 3 Klingons that we see, they do come back in the other series like TNG and Deep Space Nine. Most notably a Deep Space Nine episode called Blood Oath, which is just like a fucking banger episode. It's so good, and I definitely want to do an extra like bonus Patreon episode where we show you that episode because you've met all of those Klingons.
Right, yeah.
And so then you get to meet them as like old Klingons with actual Klingon makeup and how it's like an interesting dynamic now that the Federation and the Klingon Empire have been like at peace for a long time. That they're all good actors, but specifically, man, the actor that plays Kang is so fucking good. He's just got like a gravitas to him.
Yeah, he has a presence that works. I would assume he's done Shakespeare.
I'm safe to assume all of these sword fighting weirdos.
Yes, that's what it felt like. The sword fights were really good, and there's a ton of swords in this episode, which is very funny.
Swords.
So, hello, swords. Oh, hello. But every time they were like up close fighting, it was like Shakespeare. It just, the whole thing felt very much like we all learned how to sword fight at Shakespeare camp, and now we're gonna do a scene where we Shakespeare fight. Okay, everybody ready? Let's do it.
Yeah, I think that I found in my research, which I thought was really interesting, is that a lot of the swords are designed specifically to the ethnic background of the crew. So like Kirk uses an 18th century Navy cutlass. Chekhov uses a Cossack broadsword. Scottie uses a claymore, obviously. He has a whole scene where he's like, I'm going to make out with this claymore. Sulu uses a Japanese katana. And then the rest of the Klingons in the Enterprise crew use like a mix of like Roman shit and medieval shit, blah, 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 scimitars. But like for like the main crew, I thought that was really interesting and like a really nice detail. Again, the swords are not like particularly good props, and like if you didn't know that Scottie was carrying a claymore because he said, hey, look, a claymore, like it doesn't actually particularly look like a claymore.
No,
but it is an interesting idea, and I like that.
I like the idea too that it would suggest that the alien entity just like reaches into the past history of your of
or reach your mind.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, this is the thing that I'm going to throw in front of you. I thought that was interesting.
Well, we know that the entity can implant memories, right? Because it makes Chekhov has like a whole thing.
Fake brother, yeah.
Sulu's like, he's an only child.
I loved that. I loved that Sulu was so like, good in this episode. Why are you talking about he doesn't have a brother? Everyone's like, what? What do you mean? And like, no, he's an only child, you fucking weirdos. And that's when Sulu realizes, I'm the only one who keeps track of the birthdays, aren't I? I'm the only one.
He's like, I could also see, like, because, you know, Chekhov joins the crew at a later date, and he's supposed to be this, like, young savant or whatever, and he is annoying. Yeah. So I can definitely see the rest of the crew being like, but Sulu has to sit by him all the time. So it's like he has to make a choice. I either ignore this kid or I, like, get to know him, and then they become friends because he, like, gets through his like annoying barrier or whatever, but it makes sense that nobody else knows anything about
right. They're like, I don't have to sit directly next to him. Great, I never need to speak to this idiot.
I do think the ramp up in this episode is really good too. There's some like good acting, like because you know we see the entity. Sidebar: what do you think that entity is made out of? Like, how do you think that they did that?
Some kind of light projection.
It's one of those like spinning like windmill toys.
What?
It says the entity effect was created with a child spinning windmill toy bought from a stand on the Santa Monica beach by the visual effects supervisor James Rugg, which I think is so interesting because like season 3, I think you remember, but in case you don't, season 2, Star Trek was canceled and it got back because of the writing campaign. So it's not like they had a bucket of money sitting by.
Right.
And so they were like, you don't really got a budget anymore, so you better figure it out. And he was like, okay. And like, you know, creativity constraints, all of that stuff. Like,
it looks cool.
And
I like
it ages pretty well.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I was asking you earlier when we were watching if it had been updated, and it hasn't. it looks great. It has held up very well.
Yeah. But like when we first see the alien entity, they're like fighting, but it makes sense that they're fighting because like, oh, this colony was destroyed. This ship was destroyed. But then we see it turn not into like agitation and anger, but it's implanting memories. It's specifically, bringing out aggression. Like it's making people say things that they would never say. Like Scottie would never go up to Spock and be like, you
freak,
fucking half-breed, you freak. Like all of this really terrible stuff. Yeah. And so it's like really, really playing with their like, and I just like the ramp up too, because like we see Chekhov, it happens right away because he's like 17 and weak-willed, right? Yeah. But then like it slowly happens to like Bones. He just says something kind of shitty and walks off, and Kirk looks at him like, well, that was fucking weird. And then like Uhura like, freaks out a little bit, and like everybody just like slowly freaks out. And then it finally gets to Spock and Kirk, and they like, by the time it gets to them, you know, the two like strong-willed
mom and dad, yeah.
By the time it gets to them, they like both almost freak out, and then they're like, "Well," Kirk's like, they literally just stare into each other's souls.
Kirk calls him a half-human, and then it's like both of them are like, oh, too far.
Yeah, and they're like, and Spock just looks at him, and Kirk looks back, and he's like, "This is not us. We don't do this.
Yeah.
What is this? This can't be us. You can't make me call him names."
Right. Yeah, now you've gone a step too far, twinkly lights.
Yeah, too far. But that line that Spock delivers when he's like, I have not thoroughly enjoyed working with you.
So good.
Amazing.
It's so good.
So good. Yeah, I think the ramp up is really good. It is. It's not like one of my favorite episodes. I think it's good. Like you said at one point, you were like, oh, there's like 20 minutes left. It's a little slow. For how much happens, it is like a little slow.
Well, I feel like there's just so much going on that it's like, how could there possibly be more after this?
There are some things like I don't think we needed the like whole, the dilithium's running out thing. Like, I don't think we needed that. Like, I don't need
Scottie looking longingly at all of the swords. He could have just had a claymore and I would have accepted it. I didn't need all of that.
Yeah, there's definitely some like writing that could have been cleaned up. But
I did love that in the we're breaking down half human, oh my god, what have we become? That Scottie was also there, so I got like an extra rare pair.
You love
Scottie looks great in this episode also, so I feel like even better.
Scottie and Sulu both look really good. Kirk is like very sweaty and his hair is all messed up.
Excellent. Looking freshly fucked in every single scene.
You're not wrong.
He's like, hey Kang. Wrong. Well, you like what you see? Kang's like, I do like what I see.
Slap.
Yeah, and Kirk's like, yes.
And he's like, I'll get you back. Amazing.
I love when Kang claps Kirk on the back when they're fake laughing the entity off of the ship, and Kirk like goes like he's gonna hit him, and is like, ha 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 ha, and then we're laughing.
And then the background, once everybody starts, like Spock knows it's coming. He's like, we're gonna laugh this guy out of the room, and it's gonna be really painful. And then once everybody does it, his eyes get so big, and he is just like, is this a nightmare? Is this terrified. Real? Is this hell? This is hell. All right, I've died and we're in hell.
It's like the last shot of the episode too. Is Spock just looking like, oh no, I shouldn't have fixed it. I shouldn't have fixed it. Like aggression, I understand that. I'm a Vulcan, child of two worlds, yada yada yada. Ew, laughing. Ew.
Get out of here, space entity. We don't need you anymore. Yeah, go home. We don't want you no more.
They literally laugh him out of town.
My favorite part is that you figured out before they started laughing that they were gonna laugh him off the ship, and then you started doing this, which is just your own wild laughter pre the laughing. So it's just like a hysteria on top of hysteria. I'm feeling like Spock over here, like, what's happening?
I just knew. I was like, these idiots. These idiots are, because what could be more Shakespearean than we've taken all of your power away and now we're going to laugh you out of town. And it just slowly sinks through the walls like, I guess I'll go now.
Yeah, they don't even destroy it. They're like, go fuck with somebody else.
They can't kill it. And so it just slinks away after being literally laughed out of town. It was very funny. Yeah. Oh fuck yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really wanted everyone to laugh more, but I was very happy with it, especially because of Spock's reaction.
Yeah, they were just like, ha 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 ha. It did remind me, there is an episode, the whole everybody getting healed and like not being able to die and stuff. There is an episode like that in Deep Space Nine where they go to a planet and then somebody gets killed on the planet and then they're healed and they're like, oh yeah, we've been in war for like hundreds of years. We can't die. We just like do this. And it's not, you know, an alien entity or whatever. But it did remind me of that, of the like, what would war be like if you couldn't die?
Yeah. What's an eternity at war like? Yeah.
Theoretically, you would be like, well, we can't die, so literally, what's the point? But instead, you could also be fight forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, well, you stabbed me in the liver, so now I'm coming back and I'm getting you. And it's like, oh, I could just put all of my things down and walk away.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the reviews on this are mixed. Like Zach Hanlon, who we always quote for some reason, gave it a B-, but like in the 2018 like Collider ranking, it made this like the 16th best episode of the original series. I would say it's in my top third. I think it's a pretty good episode. It's not like I'm sitting here and being like, haha, I'm gonna watch this because like I'm obviously a piece of the action, right? But it is a good episode, and it deals with both war and racism in a better way than some of the other episodes. It's not like your face is half white on the right side and my face is half white on the left side. Like that one is heavy-handed and like doesn't work.
Yes, exactly.
And even like the some of the war ones are not, and we haven't seen all of them, but even some of the war ones don't work very well. But this one, I think this one worked so well because they do couch it in there's an alien entity controlling us, but they also just say it all out loud.
Yes, yeah. It's like, I really liked that moment between Bones and Spock where he was like, I'm really sorry. I said some really shitty things earlier. And Spock was like, I wrote it down. He says, I too felt a brief surge of racial bigotry. And
then he was like, disgusting, ick.
But it's like, that's also a huge moment for Spock to admit that he felt a human emotion also. Right. And I like that it's very casually done here where they're like, yes, okay, we're all on the same page that this is happening.
Right.
Okay, thank you for apologizing. I will also acknowledge that I was wrong here. Like, I thought that was really well done. And it feels very season 3 also that their characters are more defined.
100%. And I know I said it twice before already, but like, it is also wild thing. This is 1969. Yes. Like, this is still 60s, right?
Yeah.
And they are just saying, wow, racism is bad. Race hatred, bad. Bigotry, bad.
Yeah.
We're not even really couching it in science fiction in this moment. This is bad.
Yeah, it's because it's not like, this thing is happening and we're like working on a solution to racism. It's like racism is so bad that it pops up out of us and we're like, whoa, holy shit. And like,
yeah, they're like, I am disgusted that I felt that.
Is wild.
Even
if crazy.
Even if it was out of my control, I am disgusted by that.
Yeah, and like the fact that disgust at racism could happen at such a level that it would bring you out of like a trance basically for the 60s is wild.
Yeah.
And I also liked the way this episode was shot. I thought the lighting in it was very, very good, especially when all the power goes down and it's just Uhura and Spock and Kirk. Excellent. I thought all of that was really... And you can tell, again, season 3, they've figured out the like visual language of the show. And that the way that the lighting is working in this is highlighting people in ways that like, that's not something that we see as much in season 1. I've seen it all out of order, so it's kind of hard to say that, but like it feels like they have figured out what kind of language they have visually now that they've been resurrected from the dead, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, crazy half black, half white face episode happens in this season too. So season 3 is
weird,
a mess, a true mess. I also think it's really, really interesting and really smart that Uhura is in this episode. And she has like moments or whatever, but when they are in the scenes when they're like specifically talking about racism and race, she's not in those scenes. And I think that was actually kind of important because I feel like it was easier. Like, obviously it would have been maybe better if she was there because they could be like, hey, but like if she was there and they were ramping up the racism, it would have been probably hard to like write around that. So I think they like deftly handled that because they could have, they like did it with like Klingons and with like Vulcans, you know, these fake races to show that racism is bad when like they do have a pretty diverse crew. They could have made it really bad and messy in a way that wouldn't have aged. Like,
yeah, and it feels like it's a purposeful choice too that like race within a species it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like,
because we have all these alien
right,
entities.
Exactly. It's like that's the race over here. That's the other. And it's like
we're all human.
Yeah, and all of us humans over here, like our skin color literally doesn't matter. That's fine. Like that also feels wild for the 60s. Because you're right, it is very well and intentionally clearly done that she's not part of those conversations and that it's about the actual like species of person as opposed to like you're African American, you're an Asian. Like,
Yeah.
it's very different, and I thought that was really smart.
It allowed them to say things really, really bluntly, but still be like, wavy hands, science fiction.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it's surprisingly nuanced for a story that ultimately boils down to, like, war is bad, and,
War
like,
is bad,
aggression is bad.
Bigotry bad. Let's laugh at this alien and tell
Right?
Let's laugh in the face of war. Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this episode other than it slaps. I like this episode a lot.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Great.
Okay, great.
You ready for synopsis showdown?
I am.
An alien entity tries to make the Enterprise crew and a group of Klingons fight forever for its enjoyment and food, I guess. But everybody bands together to defeat it. Not with sex magic, not with computer death monologues, but with space laughter. Spock is going to have to meditate for a whole week after this one.
It's got to recharge. A twinkly set of lights tries to start a race war, but is literally laughed out of town.
Nailed it.
The end.
Are you ready for Skinner? It's me. Do you have a showdown? Don't put it on.
Skinner, it's 2 a.m. It's me, Mulder. Well, I won't put any clothes on, I guess.
Can you take care of this man for me? I guess. Bye.
If I can't take care of you, you mean beat the shit out of him? Yes, I am ready.
I, Dana Catherine Scully, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
This episode opens in media res with Scottie attempting to give a statement in a Senate hearing on Mulder's whereabouts, denouncing the conspiracy within the government to cover up aliens. The leading senator threatens to hold her in contempt of Congress if she doesn't shut the fuck up. All right, there's like a graphic here. I was going to do like a whole thing, but honestly, there's so fucking much going on in this episode that what I'm going to instead do and how I wrote this is that it's more Stefan style. So here we go. Okay, so this episode has everything. A couple of dumb airport cops giving themselves fatal contagions because they wouldn't listen to a very simple command of, oh my god, don't do that. Mulder and Scully raiding a terror cell. They'd still do this at this point. Mulder's rat turning about to be Rat King himself, Alex Krycek. Mulder's telling the agent that he has turned on Cigarette Man and then he can help defeat them. An airport chase. A rock in a pouch. Mulder handcuffing Krycek to a Skinner's balcony. Assistant director Walter Skinner throwing Krycek off of his fucking balcony. An assassin that is somehow worse than Alex Krycek. Skinner's neighbor is learning that Skinner is not one to be fucked with. Laurie Holden. Alex Krycek making himself, I wrote useless, I meant useful, by speaking Russian. This will not go well for him. Mulder musing in the Russian forest. A scientist cutting into a potentially alien rock because fuck it, why wouldn't you do that? Scully being in a quarantine situation again. Mulder and Krycek discovering a slave labor camp in the forest. Mulder and Krycek being captured and thrown into a gulag. Senate subpoenas. Medical experiments. Mulder is infected with the black oil. That's the end of the first episode. Episode number 2, Terma. It's boring. However, it does include a lot of dry-ass dialogue. Euthanasia in a van. Alex Krycek's inevitable betrayal. Mulder attacking Krycek and kidnapping him in a truck right in front of a bunch of Russian officers. Someone giving Mulder a shiv. Don't do that. Krycek jumping off of a moving truck. The truck has no brakes. Mulder hiding under some leaves, not getting stepped on by a horse somehow. Krycek being surrounded by terrifying news. Krycek having his fucking arm cut off. A former KGB agent coming out of retirement and doing a bunch of awesome assassin stuff. Mulder walking into a Senate hearing about his whereabouts like he's got the biggest dick alive. Scully looking at Mulder in a way that can only be described as, you scamp, despite her going to jail for him. Mulder being foiled out of proof of alien life again. Explosion! Krycek being a piece of shit, even more so at the end. That's what all of this is.
You forgot shirtless Walter Skinner.
I'm so sorry, you're right, I did. This episode also has shirtless Walter Skinner punching Krycek in the stomach, shirtless Walter Skinner answering his door to Mulder at 3 a.m. I'm sure that's never ever happened before. Shirtless Walter Skinner crouching next to Krycek and very menacingly tell him, I will absolutely kill you. There you go. Is that better?
It's much better.
Okay, there you go. Yes. Yep, there you go. What did you think of this episode?
They make absolutely no sense. 0 sense.
Fucking
Just get it out of the way.
mess. It's a mess.
How are you doing tests for a cure of the black oil if you have a cure? Because theoretically, Mulder's been cured. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
There's that. I love that geologist. I headcanoned that whole prison camp revolted because, like, Mulder crashed out of that prison camp with the truck, and then every one of the guards got on horseback, and then they left a couple guards, and then there's like a bunch of prisoners. They're gonna beat the shit out. Like, revolution. Mulder led a revolution in Russia, and he doesn't know about it.
I love that that's your canon for this. Mulder, what happens in this episode? Mulder goes to Russia and leads a revolution on accident.
He is unaware of.
Scully, how was Russia? Oh, it's fine. Nothing important happened.
I do love that line that the geologist says when he decides that he doesn't want to commit suicide. He says, "It is a wonderful thing, the persistence of life." And then he goes on to talk about how, like, this is bad science, but like also I'm kind of turned on by the science.
Yeah, I love how he was like, yeah, I was going to kill myself, but, the relentless pursuit of life. Also, they're going to have to fucking kill me themselves. Yeah. I like that. I was like, that's metal as hell.
That guy ruled a lot.
Also, no hesitation to give Mulder that shiv. Like, oh, you want to kill that dude? Here you go.
Yeah. He said, I'm here for your petty vengeance.
Yeah, right? This only took me 2 weeks to make. If I don't die, I can just make another one. Like, I loved it.
I'm fucking bored here. You were the first thing that I had.
No one else speaks English. What am I supposed to do? Talk to these people in Russian? No one cares. Yeah. Here's a shiv.
Here's a shiv. Bye. He slaps Krychek's head off.
Stupid haircut.
Stupid haircut. This is the moment. Obviously, I've seen Krychek here and there, and I know that he's a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. These two episodes, even though I don't ship them because I have no room in my head for anyone other than Walter Skinner, I fully, flatlined for a second, just, blue screen. I do understand why people shipped / wrote / about Mulder and Krychek.
Yes, I agree.
They have a lot of chaotic energy together. And,
yes.
Krychek has big bottom energy around Mulder, which is hilarious.
It's weird because
Mulder has bottom energy around most everybody else, unless he's mad, and then he's like, "I'm very tall."
You can be a tall bottom.
I know, but I'm saying that's his defense mechanism of when he's like,
take up as much space.
Yeah, he's like, no, I have big boy energy.
I'm very tall. I have a large coat.
Yeah. But around Krychek has the most bottom energy.
He's just such a pissy little bitch.
He sucks.
And he loves to talk to Mulder like this, on his side over his shoulder, like, I've got information you need. Aren't you mad you dumped me? Aren't you so mad that you dumped me? That's every time he talks. It's like, Jesus Christ, Alex. Closure's a gift you give yourself, my friend. Come on.
Also, what a dramatic, at the end when he's dunking his tea with his fake hand, and it's not like a prosthetic that can move, it is just a fucking fake hand. He had to put the tea bag in the fake fingers to dramatically dunk the tea over and over and over again whilst making eye contact with the KGB spy.
Yep.
Who rules?
He ruled. He's so good at his job. He's so good.
How is this dude who is so good at his job taking orders from this guy?
The worst assassin of all time.
What the fuck happened there?
I don't know.
That is why communism fell apart.
But Alex Krychek
oversights like this. You promoted the wrong people.
Loyalty will get you nowhere except Russia, I guess.
Yeah, the first episode is obviously better because they're setting up stuff and it's fast moving and it's and then the second episode has some satisfying conclusions with Mulder walking in and being like, "Oh, were you looking for me?" Meow. I don't know why I'm meow.
You're right. No, you're right.
He came in and
that's what I meant by the big dick energy. He's like, "Meow." And here it is.
Just ugh, fucking whatever.
Right, Scully's like, you scam. I only spent X amount. They don't tell us how long she's been in jail. Sometime, I assume.
Enough to change her clothes.
Enough to change her clothes and for Mulder to come back from Russia, take a shower, come to this hearing. That's the thing I like most. He doesn't come right away to rescue Scully, even though he knows she's in jail. He's like, I'm going to go to my house. I'm going to clean up. I'm going to take a shower.
It's a better visual. Just walk in and be like, I was in control the whole time. No way did I get captured.
I'd almost lose my arm.
I gave myself this bump on the head. This is an aesthetic choice.
Right now, outside, I did the Goldberg.
I do love Skinner throughout these episodes being like, what have you gotten me into? And like acting
I
real
know.
like pissy mad. It's like, you didn't have to let them into your house at 3 a.m. Ding dong.
Yes, he did. Because Mulder would have just come in anyway. He would have knocked him in. Like, it was just a courtesy.
Also, he just really wanted to punch Krychek in the stomach, which, like, word.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, oh, well, Mulder, because he couldn't see Krychek when he checked the door at first. So he opens it and he's like, what does this idiot want at 3 a.m? Okay, fine, let's figure it out. And then he's like, look what I brought you, Dad. A toy.
Meow.
Meow. Yeah, right?
Next time you do collages, can you make one that just says meow for Mulder, please?
Yes, I will do that.
A+.
Oh, fuck.
But I do love his, like, just, like, whining. What? I do love his, like, whining the whole time. Be like, oh, what did you guys get me into? Oh,
I know.
But it's like, you're gonna be in it the whole time.
I know. He's like, it's a really serious crime to lie to a Senate. Wow, what are we gonna do, Scully? She's like, I don't know, bitch, get together.
And he's like, fine, I'll go, you stay in this jail and I'll go break some laws.
I love that they're having this, like, intimate chat in a contempt jail cell as though it's not rigged for sound at all. Whatever.
Skinner probably has some, like, weird device. He's like, just...
So wavy. Whatever.
Who cares?
I love when he talks to the cop and he's like, yeah, I'm an assistant director at the FBI. And at first you think the cop's like, oh, so sorry. There must be a mistake. Because there's a dude hanging from your balcony. And Skinner's like, I'll just be right back. Let me go check it out.
That's not happening.
I also love that through the rest of the...
You should have just been like, I'm into some real freaky stuff. And I'm like,
you should ask him if he wants to go somewhere else. I bet the answer's no. I also love, I've never noticed this before except on this watch. I love that for the rest of the episode, Skinner says the man who was allegedly thrown off my balcony. Like, doesn't ever admit that it was his. He says allegedly he was thrown from my balcony, which is just like...
There's a lot of good background acting from Skinner too, just like watching everybody.
Yeah, Skinner is great in this episode. It's funny, I like forget that he's such a big part of this, but like it makes sense. And you've seen SR whatever the fuck, the one with the microbucks.
Yes, the nanites, I believe they're called.
And so I feel like this is a good time too for you to have seen this, where you like have a lot of context for this. Also, we talked about this before we started recording. You'd never seen the black oil before. This is your introduction to that
shitty X-Files symbiotes, which is why I was trying to find a lot of Venom fanfic. Venom X-Files crossover fanfic, and I can't find it. If you got a link, send me the link. If you want to write it, I wouldn't say no to Skinner in Venom symbiote.
Speak that into existence. If nothing else, this show hopefully spurred on some Venom Skinner fanfic.
Or fan art, whatever. You do you. Just share with me.
Would you like to hear some background on these fucking disasters of episodes?
Why not?
Will it surprise you to learn that the writers conceived this when they were, quote, trying to conceive a big fun canvas to tell stories on?
I don't know what any of those words mean in those orders.
So they decided they wanted to... What they said actually is that they wanted to they wanted to stretch the limits of their resources and imagination with the script, which is why it's such a fucking mess, because they were like, oh, we're super popular. Everyone loves this show. It's one of the most watched shows in America right now. What if we just like throw a ton of money at it?
They're not bad. I just wish that they would have figured out their canon. Right? Of like, okay, this is what the alien does and what it's like.
You and me both, man.
Before they fucking...
I don't know, made 9 seasons? I agree.
It's just interesting, because like when you think of a show, like any show that deals with pre-established like monsters or whatever, right? Like there are different lores all over the world, but you can kind of be like, oh, a vampire kind of follows this. And you can play with it a little bit, but it's already kind of pre-established. But if you're creating a whole new monster, you really have to establish... the core tenets of that monster before, instead of just like, oh, it looks sick if we made the eyes inky. Film it.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
You got it.
Yes. That
nailed it.
You have hit the exact problem of the X-Files mythology. Because that's exactly what happens, is that they knew that they wanted it to be a government repression of aliens somehow, and then it just kind of spirals forever, and there is no real satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
You are going to see the final episodes of The Black Oil very soon. So you'll get the follow-up to this.
Yeah.
But just know, even then, it's not satisfying. Like, none of this makes sense. They changed the way that the oil works dramatically in the movie in between 5 and 6.
Oh, it's
which
the movie
is,
about the oil?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, it is exclusively about the black oil. And so then you find out...
Is that why people are like, this sucks?
Yeah. It's not as bad as the second one, because the second one is fucking terrible. But the first one is like, oh, you've changed the mythology considerably. Because you've seen now the black oil is like a symbiote. It gets inside of you, it uses you as a shell. It can leave and you're fine.
Yeah.
In the movie, you find out that they're like alien style growing inside of you, and then they like burst from your chest cavity, which is a totally different kind of alien.
Absolutely different.
And so it's like they never really figured out what they were doing with this. And so there are no satisfying pieces inside of the oil.
That's
it's just
dumb.
like this thing, and then that thing, and then this guy has it. And it's really just, oh, inky eyes. Cool. And like, it is, there's a reason we haven't done a lot of mythology. And it's, I've said before, a lot of it's boring, a lot of it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of thread that gets left open. But this is why, like, it's so bizarre and unsatisfying that even the characters working around it, when it works really well, like if you actually look at the plot structure, it's like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is bizarre. We don't need
Because it's a
this.
pretty fun, fast-moving episode until you get to the end and you're like,
Don't care.
haven't?
Because like you were saying too about like the global nature of myths, that's what they wanted. They wanted it to feel like there's black oil in Russia, there's black oil in Africa. Like, what do we do that this is a globe? Because obviously aliens aren't just coming to fucking Iowa. Like, that's insane.
They wanted the after effects of the world building without properly building
Exactly.
the world.
That's exactly right. And so it's just fucking messy. And also, like, something that happens during the show is 9/11. And so the global American villain goes from white Russian person to coded as Middle Eastern. And so, like...
Yeah, like you said, like, nice that the terrorists are just, like, awful white dudes.
Yeah, it's like, this is just regular... And, like, the X-Files dealt with a lot of domestic terrorism, and then after 9/11, it was like, that doesn't exist anymore.
The FBI.
Right,
not the
exactly.
CIA.
Yes, exactly. And so it gets very messy after that, towards the end of the series. But, like, even knowing that, it's always messy. It, like, never actually becomes clear, which fucking sucks. Again, that's why I don't cover a lot of that stuff. The rock, the pouch rock, is based on an actual, like, meteorite. They found a meteorite in the Allen Hills in Antarctica in December 27, 1984, and found some bacteria in it that they're like, it's aliens, it's the Martians, and, like, there is bacteria on this rock, but it could come from fucking anywhere. Yeah. Like, it's basically impossible to say that this was an actual piece of alien evidence. But as an X-Files, like, jumping point, it makes a lot of sense. I actually think they did a good job of, like, bringing this in and, like, what would have happened?
But, like, hilarious to be like, I don't know, put it in, like, a zip-up pouch.
Right, exactly. Just put it in a diplomatic pouch. I'm sure that's fucking fine. I did love the idiot at the beginning of the airport where the guy's like, don't take it out! It's a biohazard! He's like, well, you don't have the right paperwork, I guess, and whoops, and then just drops it on the floor. Like, the most TSA thing of all time.
Yeah.
Still true 30 years later that it's like that. Because they're fucking idiots. Let's see. Oh, there was a Skinner scene that was cut. It was Skinner being explained by Scully what was going on, which, like, we saw. You didn't.
Yeah.
There's so much exposition in the second episode. There's just a lot of time filler. There's a lot. You see the same Senate scene twice. Like, it really feels like they wrote a movie, like a 90-minute movie, and then we're like, fuck, how do we expand this into 2 hours and make this into 2 full-length television episodes? And the second one for real suffers from it. You can tell that they just have run out of shit to do, which is unfortunate. I didn't even notice that the title sequence in Terma, the second episode, is replaced with E per si muova, which is Italian for, and yet it moves. And it's a Galileo line when he was accused of heresy to talk about the planets, and yet they move. Yeah. So I enjoyed that. I thought it was interesting. And also, like, it's the most they've ever talked about the oil is just in this, like, weird title card. Then they just throw it away of, like, and yet it's a thing that moves. Wow, so weird. And, like, that's not addressed at all. It's fucking strange. Like, the physics of the black oil are also very confusing. And, again, never get explained. The oil well explosion was done by a bunch of physical effects, and they rebuilt a replica of the oil tower and built like a mini explosion, and that's how they shot it, was at like an angle, which I think is very cool. And also, by again, at this point, they have tons of money. They're just like throwing it at them. Liquid was piped in at pressures of 250 psi to create a plume 300 feet high, which is fucking high and wild. And then the wellhead was rigged to spray oil-colored water for the plume shots coming out so that they didn't, cover David Duchovny in
confusing, though. Like, I thought it was the black ink because the whole 2 episodes, anytime we see black liquid, it's black ink. And it looks like that it has that like brownish color when it's like thinner or whatever. Like when it explodes on that scientist's face, like that's wildly confusing.
Yes, it is extremely confusing. And that they're doing the like rocks sinking back into the earth at the same time as the explosion. It's like really unclear what's happening. Yeah. But really what's happening is the KGB is destroying evidence of alien life so that the Americans can't get it to make a vaccine, even though the Americans are already making a vaccine, but apparently it's shit. I don't know. It's very strange. Yeah. Like, again, not explained very well. Krychek worked with a Russian-speaking vocal coach to make sure that his dialogue was delivered with the correct accent and stresses. And you asked if he spoke Russian, and the answer is no, apparently.
I don't speak Russian, but it sounded good.
Yeah, he did a really good job of making it sound natural. I thought that was... I'm glad that he did that. The reception for these episodes was that Tunguska is received mostly positive. It's got a lot of really great reviews. Emily Vanderwerf wrote one of the first really unfocused mythology episodes in the show's run, but it's good in many other ways that make it work.
Yeah, Skinner's naked in it.
Yes, exactly. It received a nomination for a CSA award from the Cinema Audio Society for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Mixing for a television series, which, like, there's a lot going on in these episodes. So I understand that, especially Tunguska. And then Terma's reception is more mixed. Zach Handel, who we quote all the fucking time, says there's too much vamping for time without enough focus on any of the individual plot threads. And he's fucking right. Yes. Some other people have said, quote, awful. Quote, virtually no structure at all. The episode's dialogue was just...
Skinner has a shirt on.
The episode's dialogue was described as being, quote, dreadful, boring, and facile, with its long, clumsy lines and ever more complex and ever less interesting speeches. It's just like, yeah, it's true. It's totally true.
So I don't need to know that this, like, rich dude is, like, banging his doctor or whatever.
Yeah, it's fucking confusing. And, like, that dude then has, like, a niece that rides horses later. It's like, who the fuck is this? Like, I like the well-manicured man. I think he makes a very good, like... gray villain, but the stuff that you've seen just makes him seem like a completely inaccessible character. Like, who the fuck is this dude? Why is he involved in any of this? Great questions. I have very little answers, but these episodes are good. Here he is. And that's all I have to say about these episodes. There's a fuckload going on. Ultimately, there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on with the characters, but they're weird and like, would I recommend you watch these? No. Why would I do that? That's wild.
I do. So I have a friend who I call the fic whisperer because she is so good at picking fanfics and like whatever. But she used to read when she was like younger or whatever, Krychek and Mulder fic. And I like want to ask her. I want to be like, look, I'm just curious because like they hate each other, right? Mm-hmm. I want to know what is up. So I'm going to ask her to curate one for me. I'm not gonna go look because like,
there's so much. Yeah,
I'm gonna ask her to curate because I'm so curious to see how people, especially in the 90s, translated it.
Yes. It's they just have such a different energy than like every other slash pairing on the show, which is because even with Mulder and Scully, it's not like Mulder is the top in that situation. And so to see him as like stupid haircut, like I'm the bully, I'm strong here, it's like ew.
and fucking
stop that.
Krychek literally like moving under his arm, like hold me,
hey, you wanna look over at the
but
Russian?
Also I'll betray you, but also pet me.
That's right. I will betray you inevitably, but also like maybe we can make out first. Other thoughts? Anything else? No. All right, cool. Let's do it.
Synopsis showdown.
Let's do it. Mulder and Krychek go to a bestie trip to Russia, Gulag, and no one gets their dick sucked, but Alex does lose an arm.
The serious ones give me Skinner with his shirt off, but the silly ones give me plots that weirdly make more sense. There are two wolves inside me. And now let's try for Deep Throat's mission logs.
Out! We need no urging to hate humans. For the present, only a fool fights in a burning house. Out!
Starting with The Day of the Dove. This was written by Jerome Bixby, who we've discussed previously for his work on Mirror Mirror, Requiem for Methuselah, and also writes by any other name. The Klingon agonizer used on Chekhov is the same one seen in Mirror Mirror. That Jerome loves an agonizer. These kind of fall out of canon later. They become Klingon pain sticks, but we don't see anybody else in this universe use like a full-on agonizer like we do in the Mirror universe. Bixby's original story, which kind of still stayed there. It featured the Enterprise receiving a false distress call from a Federation colony, which we see, but they were also en route back home to celebrate Peace Day, which was a Federation holiday celebrating the anniversary of the day nations of Earth finally made peace with one another. So this could have been even more heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Even more so heavy-handed because it was supposed to end with the Klingons and the crew of the Enterprise holding a Peace Day parade on the ship to banish the alien entity.
No, the laughing is way better.
The tense laughing is, yes, way, way better. This was directed by Marvin Chomsky. Yes, that Chomsky, as we've discussed previously, for his work on And the Children Shall Lead and All Our Yesterdays. Marvin Chomsky filmed this episode in 5.5 days, a whole half day ahead of schedule.
Bonus, baby.
Great job. Footage of the Klingon ship is reused from Alon of Troyes, which originally airs after this episode. So, timeline cut fuckery there is amazing and fantastic. Moving on to some lore fan stuff, there are a lot of notes in Memory Alpha on where things are in the ship based on lines in this episode, because you have crews moving around to different places, the Klingons taking different holds and things like that.
So the nerds were like, we finally can draw a map.
Again, working out where the bowling alley is, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And all of that, I'm sure, by the writers, are just being done on the fly in a way that's making sense. But there are people who are, like, figuring out where shit is on these ships from these little conversations. Also, we get Sulu in a Jeffries tubes. Jeffries tubes and that design becomes a big thing in Trek. You see them in nearly every other iteration
Climbing
of
around
Trek. It's
in the
Jeffries
tubes all the
tubes.
time.
We've seen those, I think, once before. I don't remember what they were fixing. Kirk was shoved in a tube with somebody.
I think we've seen Scottie in a Jeffries tube earlier as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we also get to inside ship transporting.
Transport, which becomes a big thing later, but this is the first time and only time we see it in TOS because they could just walk.
Yeah.
Reviewer Dayton Ward of Tor.com called the Chekhov sexual assault scene arguably one of the most disturbing scenes from all the original series, and he's right.
Yeah, we barely talked about it.
We'll talk about it briefly here. It's, I mean, it's effective. You can't say something like that is like, well done or whatever, but at that point we're deeply entrenched in the war is bad thoughts, and all of these are metaphors for things, and that being, I think, broader spectrum even more than they realize, that being how women and children
are treated during war.
Marginalized groups are treated during war. Great. And then even that Kirk feels bad for punishing Chekhov later for his war crimes is also part of that metaphor more than they even realized while they were doing it.
I thought the way it was shot was very effective. I think that's a great way to put it. I also was surprised that they kept the ripping sound in. That seems...
Well, and even later when Mara comes to Kang and is like, no, Kirk, like, has to tell you something. And he's like, he sees her ripped dress and he's like, oh, I see what happened here. And he, dismisses her and like, oh, you've been like, you know, ruined or whatever. Like, not great.
Yeah.
There is a comic book from the IDW comic series Star Trek Klingons called Blood Rain O'er Me, which is this story from the Klingons' perspective. And it shows to have indirectly played a very significant role in the Klingon Federation peace process, where one of Kang's troops later testifies of how the Enterprise treated them during this. And that's like a big hand towards them.
Kang slaps.
Even cooler than that for this episode, in the Star Trek The Next Generation Q Continuum series novels by Greg Cox.
Who rules? Who writes great Star Trek novels? He really does.
The Beta 13A entity, which is our pinwheel of anger here, is revealed to be a part of a group that Q fell in with centuries ago. This group also includes Gorgon, aka the Kid Whisperer, and the motherfucking fake god from Shakari from Star Trek V.
Why does God need a starship? There's a couple good Q Continuum like comic books too. Like there's an IDW series that's like Q, I don't know, but it's like Q and the Organian and Trelane, and it's like they make a bunch of the Starfleet crews throughout time like battle for them, and it's really ridiculous. Like Q is a fun like sandbox to play in.
And then rounding out lore fan stuff, we've now met Kang, and the main villain from The Conscience of the King is Kodos, and those are the two alien entities in The Simpsons. That's where they get their names from.
Oh, and we're going to get to Kodos at the end of this season.
Yes.
And I'm going to send you a lot of fanfic links.
Moving on to some casting stuff for this episode, the Klingon who says, "Stand and fight, you cowards," is Pete Kellett, who previously appeared in Mirror Mirror as Farrell Kirk's henchman in the Mirror World, who goes uncredited there. That's Mark Tobin as another prominent Klingon, who we also see as Joaquin in Space Seed. I believe we talked about him there. He also comes back to play an unnamed Klingon in the Voyager episode Barge of the Dead. That's David L. Ross as Lieutenant Johnson, prominent brow line, very kissable lips. We usually see him talked about as Galloway, and it's actually unclear whether Galloway and Lieutenant Johnson are different people or if he's Lieutenant Galloway Johnson. Nobody really knows if those are two different characters or not. That's Susan Howard as Mara, who, again, does great. The first speaking female Klingon in Trek. Mm-hmm. She was an LA Repertory Company stage actor who jumped to TV in 66. Again, all of these people probably stage credits. She does a bunch of guest roles and is Maggie in a series called Petrocelli for 44 episodes. That is based off of a movie called The Lawyer, and her role was originated in that movie by Diana Muldaur, who does a bunch of Trek, and we've talked about a bunch in this. She gets an Emmy and Golden Globe noms for that role. However, in 79, she starts as a guest, but then goes on to star in Dallas as Donna Culver-Krebs, a character she plays for 8 years on 198 episodes.
Wow.
She quits the show after 8 years because the writers wanted to write her into an infidelity plotline, and she says, "That doesn't go with the character. I'm leaving."
Good for her.
Good for her.
Yeah, fuck yeah. And that brings us to Michael Ansara as Kang. As Stell mentioned, he reprises this role in Blood Oath and the Voyager episode Flashback, and also plays Jayal in a DS9 episode, The Muse. He was married at different points to both Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie and Beverly Kishida. He is a fantastic actor, but this is another case of, well, your skin is kind of dark, and this is the 50 or at least Lebanese.
Lebanese, okay.
Yeah. So he played a lot of American indigenous roles early in his career on cowboy shows like Broken Arrow and Rawhide. It takes the 70s and 80s for that to go away, but it does. He plays the villainous Kane on a few Buck Rogers episodes. And Sarah and Susan Howard both are in an episode of Here Comes the Bride together in 69. And he appears as a technomage in Babylon 5 at the start of the second season in 1994. Babylon 5 still being that big sci-fi blind spot in my head. Also, before this, in 65, he and Leonard Nimoy played brothers in an episode of The Virginian, which was written by Gene Alcoon. So that's where they had worked together before. His film credits include Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, and the 74 cult classic It's Alive. But mostly, what we would know him for is he is the voice of Mr. Freeze from everything animated Batman from 1995 to 2009.
Oh my god, he's my favorite Freeze then.
He's my favorite
so good.
Freeze. He's the best one.
He's the, like, I always maintain that the person who would win a drag, like, queen read-off in the Batman's, like, villain rogues gallery would be that Mr. Freeze. He has the best deadpan bitch you wish delivery. People think it would be like the Riddler. Fuck that. The Riddler would try to impress, and Mr. Freeze would be like, I am going to cut you to your core.
Yep. Yeah.
Goodbye.
So that's Batman the Animated Series, New Adventures of Batman, Batman Beyond, and the home video releases. That's him. That's Mr. Freeze.
Amazing.
That's so fucking cool. Moving on to X-Files. Both of these were written by Frank Spotnitz and Chris Carter because after all, this is their fucking mess to deal with.
Yeah, for real.
Tunguska is directed by Kim Manners, Kick It in the Ass, and Termina.
He was like, you know what I love? Let's make their eyes blind.
Yeah.
And then he went on to Supernatural and I was like, I got a great idea, you guys.
He showed up ready for work that
he
first
said,
day.
we're going to punch bees and we're going to have black eyes. Let's go.
Back in the saddle, baby. And then Termo is directed by Rob Bowman. So like all of the mainstays are on hand for this. We're doing a big ol' X-Files. In Tunguska, the razor wire used in the scene of Mulder and Krychek sneaking into the gulag was real.
Of course it was.
Everyone got real pissed off that was real, but they said the rubber stuff didn't look good enough. But like, everyone was pissed that they had to crawl under real razor wire.
Except for David and Nicholas, who probably were like, yeah, baby, let's do it.
No, I mean, like, Razor wire is fucking
I know,
intense.
it's fucked up.
If that scratches your face, that's stitches. That's yeah.
Yeah, actually, Nicholas Lee was probably like, this is not in my working contract. And David Duchovny was like, suck it up, Buttercup. Let's go under this wire.
Tunguska is located in Siberia, which Mulder mentions, where an object, a UFO or asteroid or whatever, struck the Earth on June 30th, 1908. The blast leveled over 500,000 acres and was hundreds of times stronger than the blast of the atomic bomb dropped on Japan. So, like, yeah, they put it there for a reason. Terma is the corrupted form of the Russian word turma, I don't know how to say that in Russian, for prison or jail, but also a Latin conjunction for death. It has also been suggested the title refers to the Tibetan Buddhist term terma, meaning hidden or buried. Of course, all of this works, and this is all what Chris Carter meant to
Yeah.
be by accident, right? Due to production time constraints, some of the visual effects of the black oil worms weren't ready until the very last minute. So the first draft of this episode, which went out to Canada and the Midwest, which were those time zone wise that go out first, got the unfinished effects. And then they were able to have time to finish the effects and send it to the other time zones.
Terrible.
Fucking live television was wild. You think of the pressure. Moving on to some lore fan stuff, the character of Dr. Sachs, who's the scientist infected by the black cancer rocks, is possibly named after the famed neurologist Oliver Sacks, whose books and Anthropologist on Mars were a major influence in the episode Demons.
He's also like so brilliant, or was so brilliant.
Yeah.
Apparently, this didn't happen in the cut that we saw because I was paying attention. But this will make more sense to Stella in a couple of episodes. But apparently there's a closed caption cut of this where when Mulder holds the coffee cup up to his lips and pulls out the cockroach, he says, Bambi? Which is a reference to Dr. Bambi from War of the Corporations.
Oh, you're not going to see that episode for a while.
Yeah,
that's
that'll be
towards the end of season 4, but that's very funny.
And then Krychek's Russian alias, or maybe Krychek's real name, we never know. Comrade Artson is named after Val Artson, a member of X-Files set decorating department. We're going to move on to some cast stuff for this, but I want to warn you that this is a heavily abridged list. I am sure that all of those Russian soldiers were all in, like, I don't know, Universal Soldier 2, The Return or something together, and I just missed it because I didn't read all of them, but we're going to try to get through this pretty quickly. That's Jessica Schreier as Dr. Bonita Charn Sayer, who dies in the second episode. Was
The nighttime horse riding accident.
The nighttime horse riding accident, which of course. She becomes a return character on Millennium named Barbara Watts. Also recently did episode of Arrow and was in an episode of the Together series.
Yeah! Fuck yeah!
That's Eileen Pedd as Angie. We see a bunch of her in X-Files and Millennium. She's in 3 other Millennium episodes and is Mrs. Skur in the X-Files episode Travelers. She's also Sergeant Erin Mathias on like 8 episodes of Battlestar Galactica. She's also Crowley on an episode named Bloody Ties, Dark Angel, Bates Motel, and 2 Supernatural episodes. Season 5, episode 12 is Swap Meat, M-E-A-T, as Miss Frankie. And then, oddly enough, she's in season 11, episode 17, which is Red Meat as Dr. Kessler. So the 2 episodes that she's on have meat puns in their name. I don't know what to make of that on the old yarn board, but so be it.
Swap Meat is when a 17-year-old uses witchcraft to swap bodies with Sam. If I can remember, that's a pretty okay episode. What was the other one? Something else meat?
Red Meat. Season
Red
11.
Meat. I think they just like fight some werewolves.
That makes sense.
Sure.
You know.
Of course.
Some regular werewolf stuff.
That's Pamela McDonald as the nursing home nurse who just lets any old person walk in.
You're
and
old,
take
you
medication.
belong here.
She was also recently a much older nurse in the newest Resident Evil movie.
Oh. That's funny.
She looks very much the same, so I thought that was funny. She also has a bunch of guest acting credits on all of those Canadian sci-fi shows. I'm going to use that shorthand a lot during this. You've heard me name all these shows. If you want me to rattle them off to you, I don't know, find me on Twitter or Patreon or something.
Or, just go to Internet Movie Database.
Yeah, right. You can do all this yourself. That's Brenda McDonald as Auntie Janet. We also see her as Miss Loach in Folly of Dew. and she does the Millennium episode Paper Dove. She was a nun in Elf, an old woman in Scary Movie 4, was in Hellraiser, Hellseeker, one of the ones you don't have to watch, and also a bunch of Canadian shot sci-fi and TV shows, and also did voice work on Mummies Alive, which was like a weird mashup of Egyptian myth and like a Power Rangers show in a cartoon show. I watched it as a kid, so to put it in a time frame, it's there. That's Robin Mosley as Dr. Kingsley Looker. Also played Dr.
Dartboard ass name.
Yeah, right. Also played Dr. Ridley in Young at Heart and Dr. Vance in Our Town. He was also in Elf, also a couple guest spots on BSG, 8 episodes of MacGyver, and the Dudley Do-Right movie, which I just wanted to like drop into there.
Perfect.
That's Jan Rubis as Vasily Pascow. Yes, that is the badass assassin.
Okay, cool.
The cagey guy who comes back. He's Eli Lapp in The Witness, like the Harrison Ford movie, and it's about...
Why would you watch that in school?
I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, but he's also the sweet old hockey rink owner in the Mighty Ducks movies. So, like, picture me as a kid who learned how to skate before he could walk and watched all those movies, and also watching this of just like, oh, it's the nice old guy from Mighty Ducks. His credits start in the 1950s with Forbidden Journey and had steady work all the way up until he had 26 episodes of the Canadian sitcom Max Glick, and does Outer Limits, SG-1, all those Canadian shows as well. Yes, he's one of the best assassins we see on this show. And taps out, wins, right?
Like, I'm retired.
He's like, I will kill you, but I really don't want to. Please just let me walk away. Right?
That's Brent State as Terry Edward Mayhew. We also see him as Captain Taylor in the X-Files episode Fallen Angel. That is Stefan Arngrim as the prisoner.
Geologist.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also see him in Millennium episodes Goodbye Charlie and 13 Years Later. He's most known for Barry Lockridge on 51 episodes of Land of the Giants as a kid, and recently played Fence in 2 episodes of Arrow. A recurring store worker on Fringe. She was also in V and Caprica, and also pretty much all of those Canadian-made sci-fi TV shows. We get close with him because he was in an episode of TJ Hooker as a child. That's Kemble Lane as Chairman Senator Rami, who just wants to get his job done and is sick of all this alien bullshit. We also see him play Homan in the Miracle Man, and of course he's one of the Kalasari because all of the old people are members of the Kalasari in the Kalasari.
We didn't talk about this. My favorite scene, I think, was when the old guy just walked in, this assassin just walked to the old folks' home, and the nurse was like, "You're old, you must belong here."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You get his
And
bed
he
over
just
there.
climbs into somebody's bed and is like, hidden.
Genius.
He has credits from 1973 on, does a bunch of movies, but also does a bunch of voice work. Does a bunch of voices on Captain N, Exo Squad, G.I. Joe Extreme, Gundam Wing. He was Rampage on Beast Wars. He does that weird Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century show, X-Men Evolution, but live action, he played the Baron von Strucker in the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie. And he was the voice of Skeletor in the 1990s New Adventures of He-Man, not the original one, but still respect.
Who was he in X-Men Evolution?
A bunch of
just
various
like
voice credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Various.
That's Malcolm Stewart as Dr. Sachs. Previously played Dr. William Glass in the X-Files episode Pilot, so we've talked about him previously. Commander Carver in 3, and Agent Bonkazi in Avatar. Also in the Millennium episodes Loin Like a Hunting Flame, which I get to say again, and Owls. So we've talked about him previously. He's been doing Riverdale and a bunch of stuff. He is still
Riverdale gets
working.
done to you.
Yeah, you don't do Riverdale. Riverdale happens to you. Yeah. That's Fritz Weaver as Senator Albert Sorensen, best known for roles in the Thomas Crown Affair and Marathon Man, has credits from 57 to 2016's The Congressman. Another great actor who I can't go in deep now, but he's also the voiceover guy on a bunch of those History Channel documentaries. And 2 years before this, he does a DS9 episode, Tribunal. He plays Kovat. That is Brendan Beiser as Adrit Pendrell, and I believe Pendrell is the one who...
Yeah, who's in love with Scully.
We see a bunch. Who's in love with Dana Scully. He's also Jeff on The Boys, and is Eli, the EMH, on 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery recently.
Oh, okay.
Most recently on Pretty Hard Cases, also done voices on Mobile Suit Gundam and the Mary-Kate and Ashley cartoon show.
They ruled the 90s.
Naturally.
John Neville as the well-manicured man. He plays the character for a total of 8 episodes and is also in Fight the Future. And anytime he shows up, it's just a big lore dump. He's the titular Baron Munchausen in the 1988 Terry Gilliam masterpiece, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. One of my favorite childhood flicks. His credits start in 1948 with various TV movies, the 69 miniseries The First of Churchill, and then after Munchausen, he does a bunch of B movies. Voiced Major Domo on the X-Men animated series and was also General Stater on The Fifth Element.
Being Major Domo is very funny to me.
Very funny.
Being the well-manicured man on the X-Files and Major Domo, the like beleaguered drag assistant to Mojo.
And then I'll throw a third one in here. Season 6, Episode 6 of TNG, the episode Descent, he plays Isaac Newton. He's the Isaac Newton in TNG. That's our big hitters. We've already discussed Laurie Holton as Marita, and we've already discussed Nicholas Lee as Alex Krycek. Thank you both for your service. I feel like I am waking up alone in Russia in a field about to get stepped on by a horse. Goodbye.
Mulder woke up in that prison.
Possibly.
Mulder woke up in the prison and went, ugh, not again. At least I have my sweater.
Right? At least they gave me my sweater at first.
Where's my hole in the wall and my shiv, please?
And now it's time for our overall thought.
Yay!
A wide-ranging conspiracy to control a lethal biotoxin that is, in fact, extraterrestrial.
Are we talking about little green men here?
No, sir, not at all.
Why is this so hard to believe?
Well, both of these episodes stacked with
Yeah, enemies working together.
Yeah, exactly. These both had enemies working together. There's also a lot of like
Weird ship dynamics.
yeah, a lot of weird ship dynamics. A lot of like war is bad.
Slapping.
Yep, we should all slap each other. These episodes did actually have quite a lot in common, which I was not expecting, I guess.
Yeah, we nailed it. Hit the theme. We're killing it.
All right,
Crushing it
fantastic.
all together.
Good job, season 3. All right, anyway.
Fan questionnaire. As a fan, how would you say this episode holds up compared to the others that you've seen?
I would say very well. There was nothing really about this episode that felt like super distinct. Like all of the crew was in it. They're all working together. They're like working through a problem that involves all of them needing to have some kind of input. Like the story was interesting. There's a lot of location changes, which is kind of unusual. Like I thought this was like you could have put this in front of me at any point during Extracts, and I think I still would have enjoyed it.
Yeah. For me, I feel like these episodes, if somebody has never seen the X-Files and you say the X-Files, this is the type of thing they think of.
Yeah, yes.
So I think in that way, from a plot standpoint, messy, whatever. But from a character standpoint, I think everybody acts really in character in a good, positive way. Mm-hmm. So that like at least, even though ultimately the story is kind of messy, it does have like a good beginning and everybody is very true to character.
Yes.
Which I really like.
They're not writing around people's characters in this at all.
Yeah. What is the most Star Trek moment of the episode?
I think it might be the scene post-assault, actually, when he has to punish Chekhov and is, like, really upset by it. I feel like that, and then the half-human, oh my god, what are we doing? But I feel like a lot of that really relies on knowing Kirk's character. So it's not like the flinging, where I could be like, anyone can point at this episode and be like, this is the most Trek thing. But that felt very true to Trek, was those reactions to these, like, high, volatile stress situations.
Of Kirk being, like, upset, but like still having to do stuff.
Right, like being overcome by emotion and still being like, the number one job right now is to fix this problem. Mm-hmm. I felt like that overall through the episode felt the most Trek to me. The lighting also, of course. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. I mean, Mulder coming into the courtroom. It's got to be that one,
up?
Right?
I got a big cock. It's me, Mulder.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, were you looking for me?" And everybody's like, "Oh, this guy." I feel probably that.
All right, yeah, I'll accept that.
Who are you shipping?
Kang and Kirk, for real, for real, for real. Like, am I shipping rare pair Scottie, Spock, and Kirk? Yes, I definitely am. But it's Kang and Kirk for sure.
For sure,
absolutely. I'm into that. What about you? Anybody in this other than Walter Skinner versus the world?
Yeah, it's just really Walter Skinner in the world. Like I said, I really understand Krychek versus Krychek versus Slash Mulder. I very much understand it.
Yes.
But I'm not personally condoning it.
Yes.
Well, Walter Skinner and me. There we go. Is this episode a fuck, fine, or a flop?
I would say that this is like a fuck minus. I wouldn't say, because it was good.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's like a fine plus, because it's not like there were detractions from it. It's just, you know, it's not the best episode of Trek I've ever seen.
Right. I would say the first one is a fuck and the second one is a fine.
I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say the second one was a flop, because it's just such a fucking mess.
Maybe if I had to wait a whole week.
Yeah,
you know?
I can see that. Mm-hmm.
But, like, it just feels like it doesn't really hit the landing, but, like, it just feels like a continuation.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of, you know.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. And there is good stuff inside of that
Right.
episode.
There's
It's
still
just
a lot of Skinner.
Yeah, there's a lot of Skinner. That's true. You're right.
We have a blind spot.
All right. Well, you can find us on the internet. You can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Stella_Cheeks.
And you can find me somehow still on Twitter at Haberdasher9K for a limited time only.
You can also email us at extractspod@gmail.com with questions or comments. I do have several links to stories with Assistant Director Walter Skinner and a pair of handcuffs. So, hit me up.
Wow. Anyways. If you want to see where maybe those fic recs land or cut content from this episode and others, access to our Discord where we do things like live stream episode recordings, have talks about books, or literally anything else, you could check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions and look into getting all of that and more for at least $1.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find that this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for Baby Does the Thing. In the meantime,
Believe boldly.
Seek truth.
ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.